There are various elements in the scene of Times Square that seem to pop away from their surface like a 3D kind of an effect. Let's zoom in right here on this LG sign and you'll see a similar situation. And you can see that the letters LG and the big logo above are protruding away from the sign. They're picking up little reflections along the edges, but they are three-dimensional. Making a sign of that type is fairly simple. Just show you right here. I've got this one-way sign and it's straight on right now. So let's make believe we want to make it look like it's at an angle. So what I could do is just take that sign and we'll go in there and say distort it. It's in a layer of its own. So I'm going to raise this side a little bit and lower this edge just a tiny bit. And let's raise this a little more, really exaggerate the perspective on it. And we have that. Okay, so now it's got a 3D effect, but you notice it's paper thin. It needs a little bit of an edge to it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate that layer. And the one in back, I'm going to move it over a little to the left, as you can see there, and down just a slight bit. There we have this little edge, maybe a little more, just enough so that we see a little bit of that black showing through right there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do with that one layer is I'm going to lock the transparency for it and fill it with a gray. All right, now to make it look like that is in fact an edge, I'm going to go in there and we'll just kind of darken this little edge down here. Right along there, I'm just using my burn tool and maybe darken this little top edge right there and throw a couple of highlights along the center area. So we'll throw a little dodging right here, which is kind of lighten this up a little bit right there, and maybe throw a little shadow right through the middle here. So we'll throw a little dark edge right there. And there we can see that we've created that three-dimensional effect. But there are cases where it's a little more complex. So we're going to go look over here again, and this time we're going to zoom in right to this area right here, where we see we have these three-dimensional letters like here and here. There's a typical 3D like we did a second ago, but these are a little more complex. Why? Because not only are they 3D on the outside, they're also 3D on the inside. Because you can see there's light bulbs inside. So there's a whole nother dimension that needs to be added. Let's create that effect right here. Now we don't need to see the one-way sign. We saw how that works. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just type in a letter. We'll create a whole new layer right here, and we'll type in the letter H. There it is. Okay, so we got this big letter H. That's going to be our 3D letter. Now, we want to give it a little bit of an angle. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go in here, and I'm going to rasterize that layer. I'm going to take the type and rasterize it. See, rasterize the type. So it's no longer type, it is now pixels. So I'm going to go in there and give it that little distortion, just like we did with the sign a second ago. So I'm going to go in there and say distort, and we'll just kind of lift it up a little bit on this side. I'm going to hold out my shift key to constrain that. Not that much. All right, just a little bit up like that. There we go. That's going to be our letter right there. Okay, so there's the 3D letter. But right now, just like the sign before, it's flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that letter. So I have a second one back here. And I'm going to move it over just a little, about like that. And because it's a little further back, I'm going to shrink it ever so slightly. Just a little bit of a shrinkage, just like that. Okay, so now, here's what's going to happen. There's the one in front. I'm going to move it in front. I'm going to bring down the opacity for it so I can see the one in back right there. All right, now to make it really easy to see these, I might even change the color of the one in back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the transparency and we'll fill it with a different color. So let's just say we pick up this blue and I'll just go ahead and fill it. So now we can really see where these two are different. So let's move this guy over just a little so we can see more of that inside section. There we go. So now this is going to be a 3D letter that has an outside and an inside. Now I could use some of the 3D features, but they're not going to work as well as going in there and actually creating these individual shapes. I'm going to use the back one as a guide and the front one. And I'm now going to create vectors that are going to simulate the sides of the letters. So I'm going to take my pen tool and I'm going to connect corner to corner right there, down to here, back over to here, and then I'm going to go a little further in so there'll be no overlap, no little open gaps right in there. Do the same thing here, corner to corner. Still keep it right into this area. Little gap, there we go. Now, it might help sometimes to get real close because you can see right there that I'm a little off. So let's just get there and make these perfect. Just that little extra touch just to make sure you're getting things just right. Now here we're going to go corner to corner, down, up, and little overlap, close it. Now the inside part here. Corner to corner, right there. Little gap right there. And then the bottoms. Just get little edges. Now these are going to be the complete shapes, just like that. All right, so now we have all the pieces that are going to make up the outside depth of the letter. So I'm going to go in there, and in the layer behind that front part of the letter, I'm going to start filling these shapes. So I'm going to select these individual shapes that make up the sides of the letter, and I'll fill them with a color. So let's go in there and pick a darker gray than our whole image. And we'll just take that path and fill it. There's the sides, right? Then we take this path right there, and in another layer, separate layer from this one, right on top, let's say we're picking up some light from the street. So we'll make this more of a warmer color, about like that, maybe a little lighter, about like that. So I'll go ahead and fill that path underneath. So there's the letters. You can see that has got this three-dimensional look. And of course, there's the two pieces at the bottom. Can't forget those. Let's get our paths back, and we'll select that one and that one. We have that same color, so we could put it into that same layer we just had, which is that one layer there. So we'll go ahead and fill it. All right, so there's our outside part of the letters. If we want to see that really clearly, let's bring this back up to 100%, and there you can see that now the letter has a three-dimensional look to it. Now comes the inside of the letters. Same technique we just used a second ago, but we're going to create these shapes inside. Let's go to our paths. Let's save that path that we created before. Turn it off. Now we'll create another path for all those inside parts of the letters. Now here it's going to get a little trickier because it's got to kind of visualize the way things work. So I'm going to go in here and corner to corner, click there to here, straight down to here, go up to there, and you don't have to be that perfect here, and you'll see why in a second. I'm going to go way out here and click. Now I'm going to do this little corner here. Go in, way out here, and close it off. Same thing on this side. We'll do that top part, and then we do this side right here. Now here we're going to go right to this edge and across. And here we have this little section here. So here's where we have to kind of visualize. So we're going to click here, go to there, over to here, and out. And then click here to here, down, and out. And there we go. Those are all the shapes that we are now going to need for the inside of our letter. So let's go back to our layers, bring this back to 100% view. And above this is where we're going to create the inside of the letters. I'm going to create a new layer, and we'll call this one the sides, just so we start to give our layers names as we should. Now, the inside is going to be lit. There's going to be a light going on in there. So that's a consideration right off the bat. So I'm going to select these 4 paths that make up the insides of the letters. And those I'm going to give them a nice bright color. So we'll go with a bright gray like that. Go ahead and fill that path there. Now, it looks like they're not inside the letters. That's where the clipping group comes in. I'm going to clip that with the letters themselves. There they are. Now I'm going to select the 3 paths that make up those underparts of the letter. And we'll pick a tone for that. Maybe a little darker than that previous one. And in there, again, we'll just take the paths and stroke them. So there we now see that the letter is now 3-dimensional outside and inside. So now inside here, we can start adding other things, like, for instance, light bulbs, like we saw in the actual Times Square scene. So I'm going to create another layer on top of here, and I'm going to draw a couple of little lines here. Just use my pen tool to draw a couple of paths. Now, this is the center of the back of the letter, see, inside there. So I'm going to draw a path right through that center, right there. And the same thing on this side. I'm going to draw a path right through here, right there like that. And then one right in here in the middle, right through there, going across to there. And it should come down just a little bit. So now I have these paths. Each one of these paths is going to be light bulbs. Now we have a brush that I made before for the light bulbs. There it is. And the section on brushes, there's the little light bulbs. I'm going to select this first path way over here. And I'm going to stroke it with that light bulb, which right now is going to do that. So let's go in there and pick a nice color for the light bulb. We want it to be a kind of a orangey color. And that path that we have right there, I'm going to go ahead and stroke with the light bulbs. There we have these little light bulbs. Now they're a little off, so let's just move them over. Bring them over into this area here like that. All right, there they are. Now that we see that, we can clip them inside of the letters just like we did the other things. Then this path here, we'll go ahead and stroke in another layer. We'll stroke it with that same brushes like we did a second ago. We'll say stroke it, and there's those lights which we'll move over. You got to get that right layer selected. Let me make sure I'm in the right layer. Okay, there it is. Let's move it over. There they go, right about there. And clip them right in there as well. We could do the ones with the center and so on. But we see that certain things are wrong here, so we'll have to eliminate, say, that top light right there. Let's get rid of that one and get rid of this bottom one. Get rid of that top one from this layer and the bottom one. Then we can go in there and start adding all the nice little effects that we want, like the little outer glow. So they'll have that nice glow in there. See? Click OK. We'll assign that to that other one right there. And now that we did that, we might want to do a little extra light on the insides of the letters as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to those sides. There's those sides. So I'm going to take that side and say lock the transparency on it. And I'm going to get that light color right there. Right inside of that, I'm going to create another layer on top of that. And in that layer, I'm going to take a soft edge brush. That's a good size. I'm just going to draw a little highlight going right through here. Right through there like that. Now, I have some settings here. Yep, let's turn that off. So I could just go in there and throw a nice little glow right through that edge and right through this edge. All right, so now that extra glow we just created in there, that's the glow being caused by the lights. Now, I made it a separate layer. Why? So now I can control it by bringing down the opacity a little bit and then creating a mask. I'll turn those into a selection, give it a mask. And you can see that now we trapped it along those edges of our little insides of our letters. And you can see where we've got these little lights inside the three-dimensional letters.